Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming sort of very early in the morning and have an early start. My name is Axel Kalinowski. I'm from the London Stock Exchange. I'm responsible for our activities in Central Europe and Southern Europe. And as such, I have the pleasure to meet shipping companies from the region to discuss what the options are from a capital markets perspective, both on the equity as well as on the debt side. And we're, of course, very honored to partner now for the 14th time with Nicolas and the team, which is a magnificent event, and we are very happy to see it back in a physical form and shape again, and sort of be able to meet people face to face. Over the next few minutes, I wanted to give you just a very brief overview what's happening from a capital markets perspective. Generally, not easy times, but also more specifically what's happening in the sector. So as you bear with me, I'll try to keep it light and not go into too many sort of numbers. But feel free to sort of touch base afterwards with me or us at the London Stock Exchange. We're always very happy to sort of engage and have conversations how we can work together or help your business sort of grow further. It's not just a building here in London anymore. It's really a global infrastructure business. So some of you may be aware that last year the London Stock Exchange merged with a business called Refinitiv, which is one of the largest financial data companies in the world. So that means that about 50% of our workforce is now based in Asia, for instance. 30% of our revenues are generated in North America. We have 25,000 employees. The London Stock Exchange is listed on the London Stock Exchange. So we will put our money where our mouth is. So yeah, it's a very exciting institution. Even though it's a very old institution, it's a very dynamic, fast-growing institution. And equally, it's over those 300 years that it's basically built an extensive network across the globe with institutional investors. And I think that's where the real opportunity is. Help you tap into that network and use it to fund your growth. So where are we from a capital markets perspective? Obviously, as of right now, capital markets are challenging, and we've seen sort of a correction after a long period of great success, sort of where year to year billions of dollars were being raised. In fact, last year, for instance, when you look at 2021, which was the first year after Brexit, sort of after the pandemic, etc., we had our best year in the last 13 years. So it shows that capital markets are open for whether you're in a boom period or even in a sort of more challenging period. So last year we had 126 IPOs. This year we are at over 30 IPOs, so the IPO market has sort of slowed down. Investors are currently more cautious and sort of risk averse. But when we look at equity markets and equally institutional investors, they always look ahead. So the question is not where are we right now, the question is where are we going to be, for instance, next year at the same point of time. And from that point of view, I think this sector is very well positioned. I mean, we have seen pricing sort of go through the roof. We see a fair amount of sort of equity capital markets activity. And I think one aspect that is often misunderstood is that London is not just about sort of large companies accessing capital markets. When you look at the universe of companies that we have listed in London, we have around 2,000 companies listed in London. A good chunk of them, so I'd say over 50%, are actually small to medium-sized businesses. So we have a very, very deep market for medium-sized and smaller businesses as well, which is often overlooked. It's one of the reasons why we have, for instance, over 100 North American companies listed in London. They feel that to get the kind of attention that they deserve, the US markets are a little bit more challenging if you're not $1 billion plus. So they feel that London is a good market to come here and sort of raise capital and help them on the growth journey. So that's one point that I would sort of point out to you. A second point that I would like to mention is the topic of sustainability. Obviously, that's a big topic that impacts the sector quite substantially. And it's a topic that is also at the forefront of where our current thinking is. So we see a clear signs that the institutional investors are adopting very much sort of a filter of not only how much return will I make when I make an investment, but also what impact is my return making. So I think there's a great opportunity for this sector, you know, to play into this and sort of lead the transition. And we at the London Stock Exchange have, the presentation is here. We at the London Stock Exchange have positioned ourselves to help support companies on their journey. So we ourselves have committed to, as a business, to commit ourselves to net zero sort of targets, but equally we have created different initiatives to help companies support the transition. So one initiative on the equity side, for instance, is the green economy mark, so where we help companies achieve greater prestige and recognition with institutional investors by achieving certain sort of green revenue sort of targets, if you want, and then they get awarded a green economy mark. And another aspect which I think is particularly interesting in this sector is on the fixed income side. So London has been very active on the fixed income side. We have created a market which allows for low cost, high speed, low documentation sort of burden onto the international securities market, which basically allows companies to, without any sort of too much hassle, issue fixed income securities. And it's quite interesting to what extent you can use these fixed income securities. For instance, during the COVID period, we had a bunch of sort of COVID bonds being sort of issued, which helped companies that were particularly hit, whether it's airlines, whether it's hotel businesses, etc., sort of get through the crisis. But equally, there are, for instance, a class of securities that are available, and that could be very interesting, I think, for this sector, which we call the transition bonds, which basically allows businesses to raise debt to be used to help the business transition to, let's say, greater efficiency. So have, for instance, vessels that are more environmentally friendly. If you're looking for funding for that, transition bonds can be quite an interesting sort of option to use. So I would encourage you to look into that. And plus many other sort of options that exist on the sustainability front. So I just wanted to mention that that's a very big sort of topic for us. And then maybe we can, yes, wonderful. So yeah, here just a little sort of map of where we are across the globe. So we have around 70 offices across the world. I think it takes too much time to go into this data now. I think this is quite interesting. So here you have just an overview in terms of capital raising sort of activity since 2010 in the shipping sector. And you can see that actually 2020, 2021 have actually been super active years. Even this year, which has been challenging for a lot of different sectors, we've seen a fair amount of sort of activity in this space. So that highlights the possibilities that exist for companies. Here in sort of the largest, so this presentation will be available for download later on, so you know, anyone who wants to take more time to go through it, because I think I would take too much time to go through all the slides now. But it will be available online. Allow me to jump to some of the case studies that we have, sort of successful companies that have actually come to market. I think two more recent examples include Tufton Oceanic, which has been very successful in sort of tapping into the second-hand vessel market and, you know, playing the market very well and you know, being very successful with that, and having, you know, raised a significant amount of capital. In fact, it's quite an interesting sort of case study because yes, they raised money at the point of IPO, but what's interesting is that they've been continuing to raise money pretty much every single year. So they raised money in 2018, so the IPO, but then they raised money the year after 2018, 2019, and then again 2021, raised money twice. So since the IPO into the market 4 times to raise money and sort of take advantage of opportunities that exist in the market. So that's a great example of a company that has sort of built relations with an institutional investor base, which the business is using, that's actually the wrong slide, which the business is using to make investments and use those relationships to access capital on a permanent, on a continuous basis. Taylor Maritime, many of you will be aware, raised a lot of money at IPO, over $200 million, and is right now, as of just a few days ago, announced sort of the potential acquisition of a US-listed grind dock shipping, NASDAQ-listed business for $500 million. So again, a great example of a business that sort of came to market, tapped institutional investors, performed, met the milestones that it communicated from the get-go, and now can go on and sort of execute on its next stage of evolution, potentially buying now another business, which is a substantial business. So congratulations to both companies for executing so well. And that's just to highlight what is possible in this space. So with that being said, I might be just have a few minutes left. So yeah, with that being said, please take us up on the offer to engage with us. We are quite friendly, I swear. Very happy to have conversations with you and see how we can work together and sort of think about the long term. Because capital markets are essentially about the long term. It's about building relationships which last over decades. I mean, our longest listed client is a business called, it's not from the shipping space, even though we ourselves trace our history to ship to the shipping sector itself. But our longest listed client is a company called Antofagasta, so they've been listed for over 130 years on our markets. It's actually a family-owned business still, plus institutional investors, but originally a family-owned business. So yeah, so the opportunity is there. Please feel free to reach out, and I look forward to shaking hands during the day. Thank you very much.